Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of Rabbi Avi Havivi's weekly Siddur class.
I have an early morning appointment next Tuesday, so I won't be able to teach. And then we're into winter holidays, even though people don't travel over winter holidays the way they necessarily used to in the before time. So I think I'm going to say no Siddur class for the next 3 weeks. The next time we will meet will be, God willing, January 4th, 2022. Okay? So we're off for the next 3 weeks, once because I need to, and then twice because, let's take a holiday break. Today, my goal is to try to finish up Elohai Nitzur. And then I know we voted about what we should do next, and I said the majority voted for we're going to look at the middle of the Amidah for Shabbat and festivals, but I think I'm now going to overrule that vote and say that's really going to take too long. We're going to stick with weekday, which is our mission, which means we will go on to Tachanun. That is the tentative plan for where we'll be in the beginning of 2022. Okay. So we're in Elohai Nitzur. We're going to take a look at it again, and then I'm going to do some screen sharing stuff. Page 44 in the Slim Shalom, page 120 in the Sim Shalom.
Rabbi?
Yes, Michael?
May I ask a question about it?
About what?
Elohai Nitzur.
Well, I was first going to read over it again to refresh our minds. Could we do that first, and then you'll ask a question? Let us refresh our memory. Okay. And we talked last time about Hanukkah, but the time before that we talked about the steps and the bowing, so we're not going to go over that again. I will refer you back to Siddur class from 2 weeks ago if you want to review steps and bowing. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, about the steps and bowing. I was going to actually send you a message.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have a mask on for reasons I won't bother explaining. Okay. So you said it's left.
Steps.
It's right at the beginning and left at the end.
Did I say that? I was all confused about. Is it right? Yeah. Sorry. No, I think it's left going backwards.
Yeah.
And it's right going forwards.
Okay. So here's the thing.
At beginning and end.
Right. So I'm confused because there's sort of an extra step. So here we go. Going forward, right, left, right. Oh, that works okay.
And then your third, right, left, right, as the third step, you're putting your feet together. Okay.
So then left, right, left. Okay. I think I've been taking too long a step and having to put my feet back together. Never mind.
Yeah. So actually,
answered.
In the halachic sources that talk about going backwards, it does say, this is very minutia, but I'll just tell you what it says. It says for your left, you put essentially you moved your left foot back, you put the front of the foot even with your right heel. So it's really like a half step. And then your right, you have your right foot go back totally clear of your left foot. Sorry, I started with the left back and I give me a second. Yeah, that's fine. And then your second left back, you bring them even. So it's really half step with the left, full step with the right, half step with the left to bring them even. Same thing with the right. It's half step, full step, half step.
Okay. I just tried it. It works. It totally works.
Good. I'm glad we have helped you, Ilana, with this thing that no doubt you've been agonizing about for many years. Okay.
No, for 2 weeks.
Okay. No more steps question. Right. By the way, it's the sort of thing like if you've been doing it for years, you never think about it. But once you actually become conscious of it, then you start thinking about like, wait, how am I doing it? Why am I doing it right? Better like riding a bicycle. Better to, just don't think about it. Okay.
There are some who say you just do the hokey pokey.
Okay. All right. So let's just read through the English. Hashem, guard my tongue from evil, my lips from speaking deceit. Vilim kalalai nafshi tidom. May my self be silent before my cursors, and my soul, be like dust before everyone. Now she opened my heart in your Torah, and may I chase your mitzvot. And all those who think plan evil about me, really, that's what choshvim. It's not just their thinking, bad things about me, but they're actually planning bad stuff about me. Meira hafer atzatam v'kaltel machshvotam. Speedily may you foil their stratagems and ruin their plans. Right? So Hashem, I'm going to try to be humble and not open my mouth. Everyone who is thinking ill about me, you please defend me by you foil their stratagems so that I'm not going to need to speak up and talk back to them. Okay? And then we have the little poem, Aseh L'man Shmecha, do this for your reputation, for your power, for your holiness, for your Torah. I said I didn't know that much about how to kind of I've never dwelled on that particular sequence. L'ma'an yechalatzun yedidecha, so that those who cling to your friends, your loyalists, will be freed or released. Hoshia yemincha b'aneni, let your right arm deliver me. Answer me by delivering me with your right arm. All of that is a original composition. That's what I want to say, meaning it's not in the Torah. Then we have a quote from Psalms, Yu l'ratzonim reifi ve'gyon libi lefanecha Hashem tzuri v'go ali. That is the last line of a psalm that we say Shabbat morning. Okay? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable, Hashem, my rock and my redeemer, meaning the prayers that I've just uttered, which could either be Elohai Nitzur or the entire Amidah, may you accept these prayers graciously, acceptingly. And then Oseh Shalom b'Ramav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael b'Ramein, which we said was a synthetic verse, meaning it's actually put together from a couple of verses in the Bible, and it looks like it's a verse from the Bible, but there is actually no such verse in the Bible. That's a technical term that Siddur scholars use, synthetic verse. It's something that sounds biblical and has pieces of the Bible in it, but there isn't actually such a pasuk in the Bible. Okay? So that's Elohai Nitzur. So it's about, essentially, may I be humble, not talk back to those who are plotting against me. Hashem, you defend me by foiling their stratagems. Do this not because I am deserving and a good person, but for the sake of your own reputation. Hashem, your own reputation of your power, please save me. That's the Elohai Nitzur. And that's, again, we talked at length about the 11 different alternative prayers in Tractate Brachot, of which this is of different rabbis said after their Amidah. This is the 11th. It's just an example of an individual meditation. By the way, in that one, in Tractate Brachot, I believe the Yu l'ratzonim reifi ve'gyon libi lefanecha Hashem tzuri v'go ali. I don't remember. I don't think that's part of it. All Siddurim say that no matter how you finish the Amidah, then you should say Yu l'ratzonim reifi ve'gyon libi lefanecha. May the words that I have just uttered be received by you graciously, which suggests, since the halachic instruction is no matter how you finish the Amidah with whatever meditation afterwards, you say that verse. That suggests that the intent of that verse on the part of the Siddur editors is that the Imrei Fi, the words that I just said, is not Elohai Nitzur, but the entire Amidah. Okay? So our editing puts it together as if it's all one paragraph, when really Yu l'ratzonim Imrei Fi, may the words of my mouth be acceptable to you, is kind of a separate thought. And then Oseh Shalom b'Ramav is another separate thought. And then, by the way, we don't have it in our Siddur. Let me just look. They got rid of it. Or did they keep it? Yeah, they got rid of it. Anyone who grew up with an Orthodox Siddur or uses an Orthodox Siddur knows that there's another 3-line thing that you say after that. It's about rebuilding the temple. Right. I just can't. Because I want to think of it right now, I can't exactly think of the words.
Avi, it's Yehi Ratzon Milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu V'Elohei Avotenu
Sheyibaneh Beit HaMikdash B'Mehera Yamin V'Tein Chalkeinu V'Toratecha V'Sham Na'avodcha B'Yirah Kimei Olam Shadmin Kanoniot. Thank you. So Hashem, may you speedily rebuild your temple, and may we give sacrifices as in days of old. And then there's a quote of a verse, and may the sacrifices of Israel be sweet before you, God, just like they were in days of old. And the liberal Siddurim, certainly the contemporary ones, the most up-to-date ones, tended to drop that one, so it's not in our Siddur. Okay, I'm going to pause and say, are there any questions, comments, or thoughts, which I held off Michael, on Elohai Nitzur? Because the next thing I want to do is look at Elohai Nitzur in the Sephardi tradition. Go ahead, Michael.
We discussed the irony of having fixed in the Siddur one rabbi's prayer when it was supposed to be a personal meditation. I know that in a couple of my Orthodox Siddurim, and I've seen it elsewhere, there is a place just before the just before that, where it says you should add another pasuk from, I don't know whether it's just strictly from the Torah or whether it's from the Bible, anywhere in the Bible, but there is a list of them, and they're key to your name, so that the first letter of the pasuk is the first letter of your name, the last letter of the pasuk is the last letter of your name. So I am Michael, Mem Lamed, mine is Ma Tovu Halacha Yaakov Mishkanotecha Yisrael. And I'm wondering if that was done just to personalize it for everybody, to avoid the idea that everyone is saying the same thing. Have you know anything about that?
Yeah, so that is a minhag. As to why it is the purpose of doing it to personalize it, we have to remember that Siddur editors left no footnotes generally, so we can't say that's why it was done. You could say, oh, de facto, it has that purpose. There are various early halachic sources which say, and at the end of the Amidah, you should add a verse. If you look in certain super duper mega complete traditional Siddurim, they will actually have a list of those verses. Does anyone know what reason is given for why you should memorize that verse? It's not actually the reason Michael said. You should memorize the verse so that you know it in your sleep, because on the resurrection day, you are going to be so startled out of your death sleep that you will forget your name, but you'll remember your pasuk, your verse, and your verse will help you remember your name. Mine is Abraham. No, that's not it. It's a different Avram verse. I can't remember, which I've forgotten it. So there was a while where I was saying that. So yeah, that's a custom, and it's sort of done more commonly in, I think in certain Hasidic and Sephardic traditions that they actually do that, right? You'll forget your name, but you'll remember your verse. And saying your verse will help you remind yourself of what your name is. By the way, people smile. It's such a, charming thing, but there's a sense of it. It's sort of like this sense of it is, we all just come and go on this earth. Your name is kind of temporary, but Torah is eternal. You will remember your Torah verse, even though you might have forgotten your name. So, Ilana.
Yeah, sorry, I can't type very well right now. It's in the art scroll on page 1096, the list.
Which art scroll?
This one. This
Ashkenazi?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Art scroll Ashkenazi, Siddur, page 1096.
And if you have the paper one, it's on page 924.
There you go. Okay. So
it's complete Mitzudah at, I think, 1045.
Okay. Right. So notice all of those pages, it's not actually at the end of the Amidah. It's sort of stuck in the end because it's a whole list of verses with names and letters. So you're not like supposed to daven through it or hunt through it daily. You're supposed to go to that as a resource to just learn your verse. And then you say that verse every day, 3 times a day, so that it's stuck in your head, so that when you get woken in the resurrection and you're so far bludgeoned that you don't remember your own name, you will remember your pasuk, and that will help remind you of your name. Okay. I love that midrashic explanation. Not technically a midrash, since it's not on a biblical custom, but folk explanation of that custom. Yes, Ilana.
Sort of stupid question, maybe.
No,
no stupid are we talking question. About your
Hebrew name? Your Hebrew name.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Avraham.
Because I also have a Hebrew name for my secular name.
Got it. This custom goes back a millennium. So it's whatever your name would have been a millennium ago, which was, there's no middle names, my kids some of them have 3 names, like none of that. It's just your name was just Avraham or Chava or, Yosef or, something simple. Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments about Elohai Nitzur? Now we're going to look at Sephardi Elohai Nitzur. If I can pull it off, I'm going to share the screen, which has an article from Tablet. That's not what I'm sharing. So I'm just going to show you how you can do this at home. I go to Sepharia.org and I go to the category, which is liturgy. Now, by the way, there is a quote unquote complaint that some people make or comment that I'll get you back here first. I'll unshare so I can see everyone. That Sepharia, which has so much everything, has very little Siddur material, very few Siddurim. So people say, like, why isn't the conservative Siddur there? And why isn't the Saks Siddur there? And how come there's only 2 or 3 Siddurim? So the answer to, and there's obscure mystical texts that you've never heard of, that even if you studied for the rest of your life, you'd never get up to them. So why does, given how many Siddurim there are, why does Sepharia have so little Siddur material? The answer to that has to do with, does anyone know? It's one word.
Copyright, probably.
Copyright, correct. So most Siddurim are published and they make money for their publisher. So Art Scroll or the conservative movement doesn't want to just give their Siddur for free to Sepharia. Sepharia is free access. So like the Schottenstein, which is the most popular version of the Talmud now in English for people who are studying the Daf Yomi. Why isn't that on Sepharia? Because it's published by Art Scroll. They don't want to just give their copyright away. Then they wouldn't make money selling volumes of the Talmud. So we'd say it the other way around. So the fact that there's English Talmud, which is the so-called Steinsaltz translation, which in Sepharia is called the Davidson Talmud, is an amazing miracle. And the reason for that is, I assume, because Davidson somehow paid a fee for it to be put up there. So the reason that there's very little Siddur material is because of copyright. Okay. Now we're going back so I picked Sephardi Siddur. There's a couple of Sephardi Siddurim, and I don't remember which one this is in. So let's see if we can find it. All right. Sorry, I'm going to make you dizzy because I'm going to do super fast scroll down. So just to end the suspense, the Sephardi Siddur adds some material to our usual Elohai Nitzur. Let's see if they have it in this Sephardi Siddur. Here we go. See if I can make it be side by side. Here we go. Okay. So again, I just want to point out all this research. How do I find it? Anyone can do this at home, Sepharia.org. You click on liturgy, you click on different Siddurim. If there's a quote and there's something and it's from the Talmud or the Mishnah or the Zohar, you can go to Sepharia yourself and you can easily find it if you have the most rudimentary of computer skills. Okay. Elohai Nitzur l'shonim mirav v'sifteim yidaber v'kalkel machshavatam. Foil their plans. Okay? In parentheses, we have what the Sephardim add. Yehi ratzon milfanecha Hashem Elohai v'Elokei avotai. Notice, it's not Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei avotenu. It's still in the singular, right? So it's still meant to be a singular prayer. Shelo ta'aleh kinat adam alai, that no person be envious of me, V'lo kinati al acherim, and may I not be envious of anyone else. V'shelo echos hayom v'shelo achisecha. And may I not become wrathful today, and may I not make you wrathful. May I not do anything to make you angry, God. V'tatzileni miyetzer hara. Save me from the yetzer hara. V'tein b'libi hachna'a va'anava. And plant in my heart submission and humility. Look at that. Help me be humble and any modest. That seems to be a typo. So that is, I'm going to say, one complete thought that's added, right? So that's one line. It's one thought, and and you might say, well, why is it there? Why is it added? I mean, how is it added there? How does it make sense? So I think it's fairly obvious that the theme of Elohai Nitzur is help me be humble, and this is a furthering of help me be humble, right? May I not be envious, may I not be angry, help me be humble and modest. Then we have another line, which is not about that at all. Malkeinu Eloheinu, our sovereign and deity, Yached Shimcha Ba'olamecha, may your name be unified in this world. B'nei Ircha, Yased Beitecha, Shachlel Hechalecha, V'kabetz Kibbutz Galuyot, Ufdei Tzonecha V'samach Adatecha. 6 things we ask God to do. Build your city, establish your house, which clearly means the Bayit is the Beit HaMikdash. Yased Beitecha means found your house. Shachlel Hechalecha means to complete the building of your temple. Ingather the exiles. Redeem your sheep. Ftei tzonecha, lovely phrase. That's us, right? Redeeming means you buy them back from the places they've been sold to, right? Redeem your sheep. And nice summary line, cause your Edah, your people, to rejoice. Okay, so all of these things would cause us to rejoice. Jerusalem rebuilt, temple established, completed, ingathering of the exiles, all of us sheep redeemed. Then, the rest is the same. Okay, so we have in the Sephardi Elohai Nitzur inserted these two other lines. They're both of them are fairly lengthy sentences, but it's really just 2 sentences. One, I would say, furthering and deepening I'm going to leave it right up there on the screen so you can see it in Hebrew and in English. You can see it in Hebrew. You can't see it there we go. Now you can see it in English. All on one screen. So these 2 lines, the first one, furthering and deepening the theme of modesty and humility. The second one, looking to the rebuilding of the temple. So I guess, some authors felt it's just incomplete. The same way there's that little paragraph of 3 lines after Elohai Nitzur, which is part of the traditional Siddur that someone added, but which the conservative Siddur left out, rebuild the temple. Similarly, someone felt that it was inadequate to finish the Siddur without a please rebuild the temple sentence. So we have those 2 long sentences added. I'm going to stop screen sharing now, which may make it harder to discuss. Meyer, and then any others, and then we'll wrap up in the next few minutes.
I find the discussion of envy fascinating because it reminds me of the 10th commandment, which to me feels like the most difficult one to observe.
Yeah.
And this seems to acknowledge that somehow.
Yeah.
And I love its placement.
Yeah. And of course, if we had a discussion about that, it would be a different discussion if we were talking about English words or Hebrew words. There's talk about, what's the difference between jealousy and envy. So these words are hard to translate. And of course, the word that's used in the 10 Commandments is lachmod, which is not kaneh. Actually, kaneh in the Bible it generally means passionate and zealous, right? God is kana, and Eliyahu is kana on God's behalf. So kana kana, kuf nun aleph, that root in the Bible clearly doesn't mean, well, I don't want to say clearly doesn't mean, but in general doesn't mean what it means in contemporary Hebrew. And I think this, which is rabbinic Hebrew, medieval rabbinic Hebrew, is more like what it means in modern Hebrew. And yeah, it's an interesting thing. So Elohai Nitzur, then we could say, how does this deepen it, Meyer, is then I'm going out into the day. I finished all my Amida, praising God, asking God for things, thanking God for things. I then close with a prayer that is actually about my individual, I'm going to say, character and how I move through the world vis-a-vis other people. I don't want it to, the people who are arrogant, help me not talk back to them, right? And help me not be envious of others and no one envious of me. Help me not get angry or make you angry. So it kind of deepens this theme. Notice it's not an alternative. It's added. By the way, I also have a personal added thing about midot, about character things, which I add into the Elohai Nitzur. I've started doing that the last year or two. And of course, in keeping with how things work, I don't substitute it for Elohai Nitzur. I add it in because even though I should be able to substitute it because Elohai Nitzur is just Mar Baravina's personal prayer from 1700 years ago, and it should be optional. I treat it as not optional. I make it mandatory. So whatever I want to add, I add to it, which then lengthens it. Same thing with the Sephardi Siddur. Same thing with adding your name. Same thing with the little Yehi Ratzon at the end that's in traditional Siddurim. All these things end up being added, and that's how the Siddur gets longer. No one ever says, let's substitute that. No one until modern times says, let's substitute that. Meyer, anything else you want to say about that? Other than you like it?
No, I think that's great. I just really connected to it somehow. And I think that your point about, we can ultimately it's interesting because from the end of the Tefillah to the rest of the day, it's all in our hands how we behave and how we address the world. And I think that's a great acknowledgement of that.
Good. And hold on to that thought because maybe we'll try to come back to it when we're talking about Tachnun. Okay. Which again is an attempt to add something, I don't want to say personal because they didn't say your own prayers, but more something that speaks more to the individual heart. That's what I'm going to say, rather than these communal prayers of God, we're asking for rain, and God, we're asking for healing, and God, thank you for all the things you did. In an attempt to have prayers that speak more to the inner spiritual life of the individual. Let me put it that way. Okay, Larry, you have a hand up.
I did. Thank you. So my comment is not a comment. It's not about the Elohai Nitzur, but first of all, since you're doing the Sephardi version, I suggest that you might want to do part of a session on the different nusach that we have for the Siddurim, known as Sephardi, etc. And there's a different nusach for Tachnun as well, so that may be an appropriate place to talk about them. But secondly, I simply want to say a very good word for Bill Davidson, who doesn't get enough credit, who did many great things in his life, was a great philanthropist.
Larry is talking about the person who is responsible for the fact that we have access to a contemporary translation of the Talmud into English for free on Sefaria. The Davidson Talmud. Go on.
And he also did many things in Israel. And I think he actually was the one that sponsored the archaeological garden next to the Kotel.
The Davidson Center. Uh-huh.
The Davidson Center there. And I'm being very serious about Bill Davidson. It's worth sort of looking him up and seeing what he did. He was from Detroit, which is why I knew him. And I'll say something facetiously. And that's why you should root for the Detroit Pistons and Tampa Bay Lightning, which are two teams that he owned in professional American sports. And it's why you should not root for the Ohio State Buckeyes, because that's the Schottenstein Arena and the Schottenstein Talmud, which is the same as the Davidson Talmud, the same text that he bought to use and put up on Sefaria. The Schottensteins are also a very charitable family, whom I happen to know when we lived in Columbus. but they didn't make their Talmud available on Sefaria. So,
although who knows, some of that can be because of contract agreements with Art Scroll. So I don't want to criticize anyone for anyone
they really are
charitable for not being charitable enough.
And they're wonderful people. Yeah. And they're also very good people, the Schottensteins.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Any other closing comments? I think we are never done with the Amida, but for this, which I believe is our third cycle through the Siddur in Tuesday morning Siddur class over the last however many years. Terry's the archivist. She's the one who keeps track. I think this is the third cycle. I don't think it's the fourth one. I think we're done with the Amidah, and in January we will go on to Tachanun. That is the plan. Terry, is it the third time through? What is it? She thinks it's the third time through. Okay, but Joanna says, go ahead, just say it to everyone aloud.
In late breaking news, the Jerusalem Talmud has just been posted by Sefaria in English translation.
Okay. Let us end our Siddur class in 2021 on that good news. Everyone have a good, healthy day. Have a good 3 weeks, and we shall resume at the beginning after the secular New Year. Thanks. Bye.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.